So, we are currently in the month of April. Well, I did say after the video I made on December 13th that there really was no going back. But it didn't really hit me that I would have to do this video until just recently. I guess the only way I can really begin this is by saying I'm 32 years old. I was born in December, so pretty much an entire calendar year. That was, like when I was first born, that was my first January, that was my first February, and pretty much all the way until December 28th, and then the new year starts and all over again. That means for 2022, I have lived through my 32nd January, my 32nd February, and my 32nd March. And now we're here. The month of April, I have lived through 31 times. And of those 31 times, the first 17 were great. Ever since the 17th one, every year through the month of April was not. I know I talked about this already, but sometimes I still can't believe I actually did that. As of August of 2021, it had been finally established and official that what I really suffer from is a combination of depression and pragmatic communication disorder. But, as I mentioned before, up until then, for many years, through a misdiagnosis of all things, I was mistaken to be on the autism spectrum. What does that have to do with right now? Well, for those of you who don't know, the month of April is Autism Awareness Month. Before I get into that aspect, I should probably tell you, my history with the month of April. Because for those first 17 years, I loved the month of April. I mean, there was so much going for it. Springtime was coming, therefore warmer weather was coming. For the most part, Easter was in the month of April, and I really have a soft spot for the pastel colors that you normally see around Easter time. I know some people are turned off by those colors, but I like those colors a lot. Especially to me it always felt clean. For whatever reason, pastel colors always had a sort of clean vibe to them. And considering that, springtime, especially if you're a Catholic like I am, during Lent, which is a time of, renewal, rebirth, rejuvenation. It felt right. It felt right is what it is. Or was. Well, technically it still is, but, Not to mention, like any kid, I absolutely hated school. And the fact that, April, you could literally see the final, home stretch. The end of the school year was right there. I will never forget when I was in 6th grade, before I was going to graduate elementary school, because elementary school went up to 6th grade back then. After spring break, it was essentially 10 weeks until the school year was over. And I remember counting down every single day until the year was over then. Like, it was, and I wouldn't have gotten there without making it to April 1st. Like, you know, it is that checkpoint where, like, if you make it to April, you're almost done. I'm pretty sure lots of kids in college think that way too. Even though if you're in college, you're probably really stressing about how, you know, you have major projects and, yeah, you're ready for finals eventually. And I love it. I think my favorite memory of all, especially when Easter was in April, is we would all go for brunch at my late aunt's place. And it'd been a long time since I'd seen some of these family members. And, you know, again, people started wearing like warmer clothes. It was more freeing, if that's the right word for it. And for 17 years, it was great. And now we get to, actually, hold on, let me fix something real quick. Sorry, something was bothering me on the floor right there. Now we get to when I was 18 years old. And I had talked about this before, where by the time I was a junior in high school, after essentially being well established in being in the special education system for, really it was 4 years, but remember I mentioned how when I was doing the Summer Science Institute, the one sort of course you could take during the summer that was essentially going to fulfill your earth science requirements, after that class, we'd have to meet, and the kids who were in special ed have to meet in there too. So yeah, I had to do that during the summer too. So it really felt like 5 years. At that point, you know, I was officially like done being in there. I clearly exceeded the expectations of really everyone, you know, who was involved in, you know, the special education system, you know, the faculty and those people. Which was good for me because I could not stand those faculty members whatsoever. In fact, I mentioned this once before. After I got out, if they ever said hi to me in the hallway, I did the one thing that I always should have done, just completely pretended they didn't exist. Because I shouldn't have known they existed. I mean, I can't tell you how humiliating, I've already mentioned how humiliating it was being in there, and I'm not going to get into that here. But I was finally out, and in a time when, remember when I was a sophomore, I mentioned how after I saw the movie I Am Sam, I told myself, oh my God, there's no escape from this. I legitimately felt like I escaped from it. Like I was in like the deepest valley and fighting tooth and nail, I crawled my way out and I was free. And then came April of 2008. On April 1st, somehow, and because they'd never done this before, ever, but they had gotten a kid who actually is on the autism spectrum to do the morning announcements. And that kid talked about how April is Autism Awareness Month. And the fact it was April 1st, to me felt as if like a cruel April Fool's Day joke. That was clearly out to get me specifically. Because honestly, it felt like that valley I just mentioned, the one I just crawled myself out of, it felt like someone was just waiting there at the very top. And instead of helping me out, you know, they just kicked me back in. In that single day, the month of April was ruined for me. And I have to tell you, it sucked. In fact, it was at this time when the contemplations of suicide really started to sink into me. Like, that was the final nail in the coffin. My favorite month of the year being ruined over something like this. And yes, I know. I'm just speaking from personal reasons. And I'll get into that in a minute. But it was just horrible. Like, I could barely enjoy the fact that I was graduating in less than 2 months from that. To make matters worse, all throughout the month of April, that same kid who again was on the autism spectrum was doing the morning announcements, and they were like saying facts, and like, I'm thinking to myself, good Lord, I don't want to hear any of this. I got out. There's no way it applies to me, even though you have people who don't know what they're talking about saying that it does. Like, just, for lack of a better word, shut up and leave me alone. And for the last 14 years, that's how I always felt like during the month of April. Because at some point, someone would bring it up that April was Autism Awareness Month. And I immediately just like groaned, and sometimes I even face palmed. Like, oh, great. Well, April's ruined for me. I actually did a little bit of research. And you're probably wondering, well, I'm sure Autism Awareness Month has been a thing for a long time. Well, believe it or not, I actually did some research prior to doing this video. And it turns out that Autism Awareness Month was first established in April of 1970. I was born in December of 1989. So we'll round up and say about 20 years after the fact. For those first 18 years, whether I was in special ed or just being in conversation with somebody else, the term Autism Awareness Month was never brought up in conversation in the month of April, up until I turned 18 and those morning announcements were first spoken. Never remotely established at all. I mean, I'm sure maybe there's an explanation for that. Like, maybe it didn't seem like a topic to bring up at all. That happens. Or, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know, something akin to that maybe. But the fact that I was 18 years old, dealing with, pardon the language, essentially nothing but pure bullshit about a diagnosis that experts got wrong, and yet it somehow has to apply to me. There's an entire month about that, and not once was it brought to my attention in conversation at all. To say that the month of April was ruined for me on that day, on April 1st, 2008. Actually, I need to look. I want to say it was April, essentially the first day of school that we had in April, I should say, because I think maybe April 1st was a Sunday, I forget. But the point is, like, that first Monday that we were all in school, or that first day in the month of April that we were all in school, when these morning announcements were first said, like, that's when it happened. It devastated me. It did. But there are a few, I mean, this is sad, but there are actually a few silver linings to this. Outside of the fact that, I finally had gotten a real answer and how I'm not on, the autism spectrum. I mean, the first I have talked about before. I absolutely hate, the hospital in Rochester that is supposed to be, an authority on, the matter of anything autism related. But since then, I've at least established that there's a reason why people go to them for help. Because outside of essentially my case, they know exactly what to do. They are experts for a reason. And I'm not going to take that away from them. I mentioned how, the faculty I had, who were special education teachers at the time, were absolutely horrible. But I've acknowledged that I'm sure that there are, some people out there that really are passionate about being a special education teacher for a living. They went to school, they got the right degrees, certifications, licensing, they put in the work, and now they get to do the thing they are most passionate about for a living, and thus they're able to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, pay bills, all of that. And while I spent many years sympathizing with my oppressors, I've at least tried to make up for it by being a little more sensitive now. Which is why I want to bring up this. For anyone who is on the autism spectrum, or you are a parent of a child who is on the autism spectrum, please do everything you can to make the month of April the best month ever. Because life is already going to knock you down, kick you while you're down, all that. And that's even if you're normal. I can only imagine how much worse it is for someone on the autism spectrum, who really is on the autism spectrum. So, if you are on the autism spectrum, or you have a child who's on there, well, first of all, God bless you. And second of all, this is your month. You have every right to try and make it the best month of the year. And like I say before, and like I've said many times, April is a time of, the weather is getting warmer, is a time of renewal, rejuvenation, get to go outside and do stuff now, get to do more activities. It's awesome. You already got that going for you. And not to mention that it's not like the entire world is out to get you. So I would also recommend that, you be with people who love and care about you. I mean, obviously your family will do that, but there's some good people out there. It's not impossible to make any friends. And speaking of being with family, I always talk about the importance of family time. Spend more time with your family. They love you no matter who you are. Do that. That'll be cool, right? Then again, what would I know? At this point, I'm probably spouting nonsense I probably even shouldn't be saying. Also, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. I'm not trying to ruin the month of April at all for anyone who is on the autism spectrum. I'm just talking about what my personal experience was. And again, it's my experience, what I went through. Just because it happened to me, that doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form it has to happen to you. Although, speaking of which, if you, actually, I had an idea that it just sort of like blanked out on me. If anything could be taken away from this, is that and maybe I am kind of being selfish in saying this, but since I was properly diagnosed with depression and pragmatic communication disorder last August, this is the first time I'm going to be able to enjoy the month of April with gusto. And it really does make me happy I can do that now. But I also know that I couldn't get here without going through what I went through. So again, and I can't iterate this enough, for people who suffer from autism and people who have a relative or a child or someone like that who is on the autism spectrum, this is your month. You better enjoy it. Do everything you can to enjoy it. Obviously, within reason, of course, And yeah, you have an entire month. I'm not saying like every day, a day like actually, I was going to say a day like being at Disney World, but from what I hear, Disney World is going through some trouble right now. Or, make every day, I'm not saying make every day like your birthday. Not at all. But, have a little bit of fun. Give yourself an excuse to smile. To be honest, going through all that back in high school, that's what I try and do. And yeah, at that time, it ultimately led to me to, contemplating suicide. But it's not like it happened overnight. Like, trying to remain optimistic really did work. Really and truly. But again, that's just what I went through. I guess I really couldn't do this video without a low, high, and act of kindness. So I guess my low is the fact that if for whatever reason, because honestly I went into this video thinking that I may have offended people. I really wasn't trying to do that, I swear. But if I offend you, I deeply apologize for that. And you know what? That can be my low. I'll do that. I would deserve that. My high is the fact that I was finally able to get this off my chest. Because it really didn't feel like I have to talk about it. And, I guess my act of kindness will have to be, again, when I tried to tell you earlier, this is your month. Try and promote that, this is, people should be aware about Autism Awareness Month. They should. I've been alive for 32 years and there's still no cure. That can't be right. And meanwhile, you already have a COVID vaccine within like a year and a half. I'm sure there's like logistics and all that stuff that's too complicated for me to understand. But, try and promote this month to the best of your ability. That'll be my act of kindness is, I'm going to use today to try and promote this month. Obviously, this video is meant to do that, but still. That's really all I have right now. I am incredibly humbled, beyond humble, that I shared this with all of you today. I am hopeful that, we have a wonderful Saturday, because it is Saturday. Happy Saturday, everyone. And remember, if anyone needs to talk to me, I'm going to be right here and I'll listen to whatever you have to say. And I'll be happy to do that with a smile on my face if need be. Take care, everyone.